Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you, members of the press who are with us this morning. Just a few remarks from the side of the party. Firstly, I think that we have seen a lot of politicking that's been going on. We understand what the agenda is all about. The agenda is to our colleagues to try as much as possible to distract us from what we must be doing, and that is to translate our 2016-2021 manifesto into a tangible program of action. Colleagues, this morning we also have Mr. Milupi, who masquerades as ADD President. But we know that he's a member of the UPND. Discussing or talking about the 75% electricity tariff hike. But one would expect that Mr. Milupi, as an electrical engineer, should move beyond just being an armchair critic. We want to invite Mr. Charles Milupi to offer alternatives. Let him not just end up criticizing and politicking when he knows very well, as an electrical engineer, he knows the challenges that the electrical or the energy sector has faced in this country. And so we invite him. We are calling on Mr. Charles Milupi that, raise the bar, go beyond mere rhetoric, go beyond cheap criticism. Talk about the 300 units threshold that ZESCO has put in place. Acknowledge the cushioning that this government is doing when it takes certain measures. And when we talk about the energy sector, we expect that colleagues that have been to school, like Mr. Milupi, to go beyond this cheap politicking, cheap propaganda. Let him rise above this level of mediocrity. Let him engage and tell us about alternative energy solutions that they have, both as ADD but also as a UPND. If you go to the PF manifesto, the PF manifesto is very, very clear, elaborate about what the Patriotic Front would do for the energy sector. We're very, very clear the steps that will be taken. Among them is that the Patriotic Front within this period would allow ZESCO also to recapitalize. And Mr. Charles Milupi knows that I don't think he has any other solution as to where that money is going to come from. So I thought it was just important to dismiss that. But this is not my show. This is a show for Honorable MUSHIMBA. And thank you, Madam Moderator. Honorable MUSHIMBA will speak, and his opinions will be that of government, and he will speak as a member of a cabinet. And his views will represent the views of the government. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's indeed an honor to see many of you here on a Sunday morning. And many of you should be probably sleeping in after I had a week-long worth of work, or you should be at church. But you come here to listen to myself, to listen to our party positions on many of the items that are out there being discussed in terms of our governance, in terms of the country. I come from the Ministry of Transport and Communications. What I'll share with you today is the mandate that we have as a ministry, some of the things that we're doing as a ministry. And I'm sure at the end there may be some questions or clarifications that will be sought on some of the things that I'm going to touch on. As I start, I will explain to you who I am. The benefit that I have as a new entrant into the political scene is that many of you may not know who Brian MUSHIMBA is. So I think in this interactive session, I'll start with that so that you may be aware of who I am, where I'm coming from, and then from there I'll jump into our ministry, the work, and the mandate that we have that we're carrying out on behalf of this PF government of His Excellency Mr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu. I'm Brian MUSHIMBA, as you are aware. the Member of Parliament for Kankoyo constituency in Mufulira at the moment. And I am from Kankoyo, in Mufulira, born there, grew up there, coming from a very large family in Kankoyo. Number 9 of 18 kids that my mother and father had. Usually when I say that, I pause to get a reaction from the people, to let that information sink in. Because I don't think they make them like that anymore. A woman who can have 18 children, like my mother had, same mother, same father, they started very early. 18. Indeed, they don't make them like that anymore. So I'm number 9 of the 18 children, and I was born in Kankoyo. I grew up in Kankoyo, went to schools in Kankoyo until I finished my grade 7 at Makole Primary School in Kankoyo. Then my secondary education, I ended up at Impelembe Secondary School, which was a mine school then, ZCM school then. And I finished grade 12 there, and after successfully completing grade 12, I was admitted at University of Zambia in Natural Sciences, as well as ZCM giving me a scholarship to stay at Impelembe and do Form 6. You know, they used to be Form 6 back then. So I chose to continue staying at Impelembe, and I did Form 6 there, Form 6 lower and upper, which I completed. When I completed Form 6 upper, that program would be sent abroad for studies. So I went abroad under the ZCM/Zambian government scholarship to study engineering. So I'm an engineer by training. By the time I was graduating with my degree, that's about 1998, 1999, the mines were being privatized. So that requirement for all of us that were educated through that program to come back and work for the mines immediately was taken away. So ZCM wrote to us that the mines are being privatized. That requirement for you to come back and work is no longer there. So they advised us to, acquire as much exposure, much experience working in these countries, so that you can be of more value to the country down the road. And that's what I did. I started work in the US, where I trained, and I worked there until I joined. I worked for Siemens as an electrical engineer, mostly working in power stations, power plants, as a commissioning engineer for almost 7 years, as a junior electrical engineer, through the promotions, senior electrical engineer, commissioning engineer, lead commissioning engineer, and project manager. In late 2006, I resigned from Siemens because I wanted to come back home and joined Chilanga Cement in the US. Because Lafarge had operations in the USA, so I joined them, and they shipped me to Zambia to work here at Chilanga Cement as the engineering manager. And I worked at Chilanga Cement as engineering manager until 2012. In 2012, I resigned from Chilanga. I joined ESCOM in South Africa as a technical director, the ZESCO of South Africa, as a technical director in charge of the expansion plan. They had been hit with a lot of load shedding, just like what we went through ourselves. And they needed someone to oversee the capital expansion to address the issues of load shedding that they were faced with. I did that role for a year, and then they promoted me and sent me to their subsidiary in Uganda as a CEO for the ESCOM Uganda operations. I was in Uganda until 2016 when I came back to stand as a member of parliament for Kankoyo. I had an option to continue staying in Uganda, but I refused that extension because at that time I'd made up my mind that this was the opportune time for me to give back to Kankoyo constituency through going home and asking them to be their representative. And if you ask when all this political bug got into me to want to do public service, I would say it started I think with Mr. Sata when he formed the PF. If you ask my wife, my wife of almost 20 years, and we have 2 children together. She says from the time I met her, I was talking about public service and going to stand as a member of parliament in Kankoyo. I don't remember. You know, all I remember was when Mr. Sata broke away from MMG, formed PF, and the message that he crafted for PF, the proper message that we as PF up to now espouse, that is what drew me into the politics a lot closer. And when I was working for Chilanga Cement, I started fraternizing with Mr. Sata. I went to his office on Cairo Road. At the time, our member of parliament for Kankoyo had gone to the NCC, which the PF did not support, and they became rebel MPs, and their seats were going to be declared vacant. So I went to Mr. Sata and I said, listen, I want to offer myself as a candidate if you're going to have by-elections in Kankoyo. This was now in 2007, 2008, and Mr. Sata took me under his wings, guided me on what needed to be done, introduced me to a comrade that I already knew, a member of Central Committee now, Honorable Yam from Kanga, to guide me in the politics of Mufulira. We never had those by-elections because those rebel MPs ended up going to court and everything was stored in the court process until 2011. In 2011, I applied to stand as a member of parliament to the internal processes of PF. I was still working at Chilanga Cement at the time as the engineering manager. And when we were going through the adoption process, I realized that it was going to be a bit harder than I expected to continue with the process, because when I approached my employer that I was ready to go and give my service to the people of Kankoyo and work for them as a public servant, my employer said I had some commitments to them, especially because I had been hired by Lafarge USA. Lafarge USA had sent me here. I think some of my benefits were still coming from Lafarge USA, even if I was working for Lafarge Zambia. So there were some commitments there that they felt I didn't finish. You know, when I went home and sat down with my wife to talk about it, my wife said, listen, maybe the timing is not the right timing. I went to Mr. Sata and I humbly requested that I pull out of the adoption process because of that issue. He voiced some disappointment, but he understood, and I pulled out of that adoption process. I still continue supporting the party, working with the party in my small way, and an active member through the 2011 election cycle. I actively campaigned through that election cycle. We partnered with Honorable Panj Kaunda on the People's Pact. If you follow the People's Pact Forum, we're going around mobilizing votes, and I was a mobilization secretary for that movement until we won the elections in 2011. 2016 I came back and I applied for adoption on the PF ticket, and you know, they say God's time is always the right time. Despite having a very large pool of candidates, very good candidates in the internal adoption process for Kankoyo, there was 13 of us, very good, credible candidates. I came out as the preferred candidate for the PF ticket, and being the fact that I'm from there, my father worked in the mines in Kankoyo, my mother was a marketeer at Kwacha Market in Kankoyo. I actually grew up at Kwacha Market in Kankoyo. My mother used to sell dried carpenter there, and I was a trusted child. When she was not there, when she wanted to get some relief, I'd be the one that she would leave to sell carpenter for her. And so my mother's at Kwacha Market and other markets, you know, so there was that connection to the community that even in the campaign, last year's campaign leading up to August 11th elections, it really helped because everyone in the constituency would remember you and say, oh yeah, you are the, you're so grown now, yeah, our son, you know. So that's my journey, that's me, and who I am. And we went through the general elections in August, we won, and here we are. I was humbled to be recognized by His Excellency and given this portfolio to lead the Ministry of Transport and Communications. And as I speak to you now, I speak to you as the Minister of Transport and Communications. Moving on from who I am, I'll talk a bit about the ministry now, the ministry mandate, and some of the things that we're doing as a ministry. And obviously that may generate some questions from yourselves as I get to the end. The ministry before 2011 existed as a separate ministry of Transport and Communication, the way it exists today. But when His Excellency Mr. Sata, may he so rest in peace, came in power, he actually collapsed some ministries to try and streamline ministries, to try and put aligned ministries and ministries that seem to have similar mandates to work together. So this ministry was collapsed into one, which was Ministry of Works, Ministry of Transport, Work, Supply, and Communication. It was a long ministry headed by Honorable Yafamkanga. And until 2016, it existed as such. When His Excellency Mr. Edgar Chabalun came in office, he saw the need to revisit the collapsing of those ministries, especially because of the criticality of the ministries that were collapsed and the focus that it needed to make sure that each ministry carried its mandate with a bit more zeal and a bit more focus. So he revisited that, and under the presidential decree that was signed and gazetted under Gazette number 876 of 2016, this ministry was re-established the way it used to be as Transport and Communications. And our mandate is really to make sure that we formulate policies around transport and communication to make sure that we transition this country into the transport and communications hub for SADC region that we want it to be. And what does that mean? That means that we look at the most efficient way to design our transport systems. We look at the most efficient way to design our communication systems so that we become the preferred market for companies, foreign direct investment, and anyone who wants to set up or enter the SADC region. As you are aware, we are blessed with the geographic location that we have as Zambia. We are centrally located in the heart of Southern Africa, surrounded by 8 countries, very politically stable, very secure, democratic, very good governments and smooth transition of governments since 1991. All those things are things that we are blessed with, and also things that we've also worked on to make sure that we've achieved and maintained this peace and stability for the last 54 years. And what we are doing as PF government now is to make sure that we build on that to make this country really the hub for transport and communications. What we're doing to put the legs under that thinking is the massive infrastructure investments that you've seen under this government since we took over 5-6 years ago. Let's talk about the transport side of the ministry. If you look at transport side, we have roads, we have aviation, we have waterways, and we have railway transportation. And aviation, I'll start there. You've seen the amount of investment that this PF government has done. If you've gone through the airport here, we're building a brand new terminal at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport. That terminal will be able to handle an additional 4 million passenger per year capacity outside the 2 million passenger per year capacity from the existing terminal. So we're going to have 6 million passenger per year capacity when we finish constructing this airport. Outside that, if you go to Arimangankumbula International Airport in Livingstone, we've commissioned a brand new terminal. And if you haven't been there, take time to go there. Especially for you reporters, these are some of the developmental projects you need to be reporting on to show how this government is working. That terminal is one of the best in this region. Architecture-wise, the soundness of the structure, and just the aesthetics of the structure. I commissioned it last year in November, and it's a very beautiful terminal. We go to Ndola. I was there a week and a half ago. We are commissioning a greenfield project, a brand new international airport, Simon Mwansaka Airport. We're moving out from the existing site because we don't have enough space for the expansion that we need to do. Because these airports that we are upgrading and building they're coming with a lot more infrastructure around them that we need a lot of space. If I go back to Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, it's coming with 2 hotels, it's coming with a shopping mall, you know, it's coming with the presidential pavilions, it's coming with all these amenities that you need a lot more space to have to house such infrastructure. In Ndola, we're doing the same. You know, that airport we're building in Ndola, which will have a capacity of about 1 million to possibly 2 million passengers per year, will come with all those amenities as well. It's going to be between Ndola and Kitwe, so you're going to be able to access it coming from Ndola without having to reach Ndola, from Flira, you know, and it's very, very nicely located in what is presently is a Fiko Forest Reserve, which we've negotiated, and there's some people that we need to move out and settle them to another area that's been identified as well. In fact, the delays in constructing this airport, in starting construction of the airport, has been around completing the resettlement plan, which we have concluded. We've identified the new land where people are going to be moved to. Funds have been released from government to pay for the resettlement of the people, and by the end of this month, that resettlement process will have been concluded for the major parts of the area where the works needs to start. When I was there a week and a half ago, the campsites have already been cleared. Housing is already constructed for the people that are going to be working at this airport. Away from that, we go to Mfuwe International Airport. We are having active discussions right now to upgrade Mfuwe International Airport. We did open bidding for that, and one company has been identified, and currently that company is discussing the Ministry of Finance in terms of agreeing on the term sheet and how we're going to work on that airport. Other provincial airports are being looked into. We have budget lines for those. Airstrips, we have budget lines for those. This is an indication of the commitment from this PF government that we see aviation transportation as one of the modes of transportation that we need to have in this country. All 4 modes of transportation in this country has to be accessible, has to be available, and has to be affordable. And this is why this government is investing in all 4. I've spoken about aviation. I'll go to roads. I think roads, many of you bear witness that we started a very ambitious program of Link 8000 under His Excellency, Mr. Sata. And this is supposed to link all districts in the country by road. We have not stopped under His Excellency, Mr. Edgar Chabalungu. We've continued building on that, and this Link 8000 will continue until we make sure that all districts are linked, all township roads are done, and all the roads that we need to pave are paved, and all the rural communities that needs to be accessed are accessed. We move away from the roads, we go to railway. You've seen the commitment there as well from this PF government. We have 2 railway companies right now, which is Tazara, a joint venture between the Zambian government and the Tanzanian government, as well as Zambia Railways, which is wholly owned by the Zambian government. With Tazara, we continue working with our Tanzanian counterparts to inject resources in that operation. We recognize the need to recapitalize, to invest, and to revamp that institution, and many discussions are happening around how we do that to make sure that we have a modern Tazara in the near future. Zambia Railways, it's the same. When we came in government in 2011, Zambia Railways was concessioned out. And this PF government recognized that there are certain institutions that are strategic, that are key to the people of Zambia. And they need to be with the people of Zambia. So we took that institution back, and when we took it back, we injected immediately $120 million from the Eurobond to make sure that we restate the operations that had gone to sleep. When we did that, Zambia Railways speeds were as low as 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. So they lost all their customers because no one would put cargo there, and it takes forever to get your cargo from point A to point B. So when we invested that money, the permanent ways were worked on, locomotives were manufactured, wagons were worked on, And all the slow speed areas were worked on under that injection from the PF government. Today, as I speak to you, Zambia Railway speeds are as high as 50 kilometers per hour, from the 10 to 15 kilometers per hour before PF government injected those resources in there. And now, the tonnage that we had lost is coming back to Zambia Railways. We'll continue on this because we feel we can attain higher speeds and give more confidence to our customers to transport their cargo, heavy and bulk cargo, on our railways. Back to Tazara. Before this PF government again injected resources into Tazara, the slow speed areas were so many, but through the commitment of this government and our counterpart government in Tanzania, we've reduced those slow speeds in the last 5 or so years by 86%. What that has done is that when you ship cargo from Mpika to Dar es Salaam, it used to take 36 days. And again, if you have cargo that's urgent, that needs to get there in a faster time, you're not going to use Tazara. You'd find other means. And hence Tazara lost the tonnages that they used to move. Today, because of working on this Tazara, investing in Tazara, and reducing the slow speed areas by 86% that this PF government has done, you can transport your cargo from Mpika to Dar es Salaam in 5 to 6 days. This is a working government, people. From 36 days to 5 to 6 days, that is commendable, and anyone who's objective can see this and see the fact that we mean well and want to work and want to invest what we need to invest to make sure that our companies are viable and they can provide employment and provide this economy with the much needed infrastructure to move the economy forward. Away from rail, no, before I move away from rail actually, the revamping plans that we have for Tazara and Zambia Railways, we've engaged 3 companies right now that are doing studies, feasibility studies for both Tazara and Zambia Railways. Those studies are now coming to a conclusion, and there will be 3-phased approach in the modernization plan for both railway systems. By the end of the 3rd phase, we're going to have a modern rail that is going to befit the future that we want for rail transportation. And as government, we're engaging actually those companies that transport bulk cargo and heavy cargo to see how they can move that onto rail, because we've invested heavily in the rail. The speeds are better, the security of the freight is better, and we continue investing. So there's a case now to be made for the mining houses and fertilizer transporters and transporters of bulk cargo to come back to rail. And we are engaging them so we can move a quarter of their cargo back onto rail. We are going to finish those engagements, and we're going to sign that statutory instrument that will make them move that cargo onto rail, which will be cheaper for them, and still get the cargo to the end destination in the time that they desire. On water transportation, again, I said all forms of transportation under this PF government we feel needs to be open, needs to be accessible, needs to be available, and needs to be cheap enough for the common person to access and have options, because the appropriateness of travel is what we are trying to achieve. There's no need for something that needs to move by rail to be moving by road. There's no need for something that needs to move by air to be moving by water. So we need to open them up so that people have options and they can appropriately move cargo through the most appropriate way possible. Underwater transportation, we have many water bodies, large water bodies, especially in the Luapula area, in the Western Province area. And this PF government, again, in 2011, understood the need to make sure that we make water transportation available in Zambia. What did we do? We went out and did a nationwide survey on all water bodies that we have in the country to identify how we can make them navigable. And when we did that survey, we realized that we needed to buy dredging equipment so we can dredge all these canals that had silted, that had weeds, that had overgrown, and that we did. In 2012, we ordered 27 dredging equipment. Out of those 27 dredging equipment, 18 have arrived. Some of them have been deployed to these areas, and dredging has either started or is about to start. We have 9 more dredging equipment that is on the way. We've been discussing with the contractor to make sure that we get those here as soon as possible. Once we do that, we also now need to put vessels to transport people and cargo. So we also did another tender in 2012 to procure 6 vessels, 3 passenger vessels, 3 cargo vessels. Of those passenger vessels, 1 has already arrived. It's, I think, in one of our backyards at the ministry. Was supposed to be deployed onto the Zambezi River in Western Province, but because of the completion of that road that we did, Mongo Kalago Road, most expensive road and marvel to look at in the SADC region. If you haven't seen that road, that bridge, 26 bridges, road constructed over a waterlogged area and swamp, and the most expensive road probably in the SADC region this PF government has delivered. You should go and see that. Because of the fact that we commissioned that road and transportation has been eased by that road, that vessel, we're now trying to see if we can redeploy it somewhere else, especially onto the Kariba, where there's a bit more need for it. The other 2 passenger vessels should be here anytime. The 3 cargo vessels, contracts were given. I know one for Lake Tanganyika has some movement. We may be getting that very soon. The other 2 still discussing the suppliers to make sure that we get those here. Again, this is a clear indication that this government is not sitting idle. It's actually working. Amidst all the destruction that we've seen, we stayed focused because the Zambian people have given us a mandate to superintend over the affairs of the country and to make sure that we improve and keep improving the welfare of the people and continue oiling the economy so that the economy can work for all of us. When I think that speaks to the transport sector, and I've touched on all 4 legs under there. I'll jump to the communication aspect of my ministry. There as well, we have a very big mandate to make sure that communication is made available across the country. And what that means is we also invest in the infrastructure and the backbone. We are investing in fiber optic, through ZESCO, through private sector such as CC Liquid, through many other private companies to make sure that we lay the fiber optic cable we need to lay, we expand the broadband, and we take communication where we need to take it. Outside that, in 2012, 2013, this government again rolled out a program to put communications towers now, this time outside the main line of rail, because along the line of rail the network was pretty decent and very good, but in rural areas we didn't have the network. So we launched the phase 1 of the communications towers, which attempted to now install communications towers in unserved and underserved areas, mostly the rural areas of Zambia. And we identified mostly the chiefdoms and identified 118 of them to put 204 communications towers across the country. And that exercise concluded under phase 1 of that project. This was funded through the Universal Access Fund that ZICTA, the regulator in this space, collects from the sector. And those towers have been commissioned and they're operational the last time I checked. We didn't stop there, because when we finished that, the network coverage in the country grew to 88% when we finished with phase 1. And we knew that our target is not 88%, it's not good enough. We want to have 100% network coverage in the country, so that wherever you are in Zambia, you should be able to have a phone signal, you should be able to have internet. So we went into phase 2 of communication towers. And we also learned from phase 1 that the terrain in Zambia may not be uniform. And if you put a tower that is of a certain length, it may not go over certain terrains. So the phase 2 is going to have larger towers, taller towers, with stronger signals and a larger radius. And we're going to install new and upgrade some of the existing towers to a total of 1,009 towers across the country in the phase 2. It's a $280 million project. We are finishing discussions with China Exim Bank so that we can start this project here very soon. And by the time we finish this project, the phase 2, we're going to have up to 92% network coverage in the country. Our network, such as Zamtel networks, are covered under this phase 2. We're going to see an upgraded and expanded network under Zamtel. I've seen some comments that because Zamtel's customer base is growing so rapidly and so fast, especially lately, there's been a bit of congestion. When we finish this project, we're going to see some relief, faster speeds, and the Zamtel that will be able to serve the customers, especially the increased customers that they are signing up onto their network. Now, if we get to 92%, we still have 8% coverage that we need to have. What are we going to do? What we plan to do as government is going back to the Universal Access Fund again that ZICTA collects, to make sure that ZICTA now takes the mantle from 92% to 100% using the Universal Access Fund. This phase 2 project is supposed to be a 3 to 4 year project, and we're hoping by the time we finish that, ZICTA now will pick up from there, and in another 2 to 3 years after that, we're going to complete from 92% to 100% and make sure that Zambia has total network coverage here. What that does is it allows people, companies, and commerce to go to any part of the country. It allows anyone to go set up shop in the middle of nowhere because they know they'll be connected to the network, there will be inclusion, and people can do many other things that they want to do, especially because we're talking digital migration of the economy, we're talking about e-government, we're talking about e-services, we're talking about e-medicine, e-banking. All these things become now possible with such backbone and such infrastructure. You don't need to have a bank in Chirubi Island, where my mother is from. You know, you can actually have virtual banking, you know, through a phone. You know, people can actually get money, and they can buy fertilizer through virtual money, and that fertilizer will be delivered on their doorstep, you know, just like that. If you can provide these services that we need. Because ICT, believe it or not, the ICT industry, which is under my ministry, is the next wave for what we're calling the fourth industrial revolution in the world. We know what the first industrial revolution did, we know what the second did, we know what the third did. The fourth is going to be on the back of internet and the Internet of Things. How to get data, manipulate data, and manage it to make sure that you get the efficiencies that you need to get. Outside the towers and the communications, I'll go back to the smarting of Zambia that this president launched, Smart Zambia Phase 1, which we just finished delivering. Smart Zambia Phase 1 speaks to e-government, speaks to the e-services. This PF government of His Excellency, Mr. Edgar Chabalungu, understands the power of the internet, understands the fact that if we can reduce human interaction and go paperless, the potential that sits there in improving delivery, government delivery of services is enormous. So we are going that way, and we started Smart Zambia Phase 1, which we've delivered now. Under that Smart Zambia Phase 1, we were laying the backbone, we were laying the foundation for Phase 2, which we have just concluded contracting. What Phase 1 did was, and under the foundations and the backbone we needed to put for Phase 1, we built a state-of-the-art data center that is housed at ZICTA, a Tier 1 data center, one of a kind in the SADC region, which connects to the cloud. What that does is we're going to house all the data that we have in Zambia. It's going to be backed and triple backed, because we have backup centers. Outside that, we have a backup center in Lusaka and a backup center in Kitwe, and then the cloud. Data security is important as you start going into the digital world. You need to make sure that you protect it, you secure it, it's accessible, it's available, and it's backed up. If there's corruption here, you can easily reboot from another source. And this is what we did with Smart Zambia Phase 1 and that data center that we finished. I visited it not too long ago. It was at 99% completion then. We're waiting for official launch, and hopefully the president will come and launch this. Under that, we also did the ICT Center of Excellence in Ndola, the former Zamtel College. If you haven't been to that center, you should go now. We've invested a lot of money in that institution, and now is a premier center for ICT training in the country. Because it does not make any sense to talk about digital migration and e-government if we cannot provide a platform to train a cadre of our people that are able to uptake this information. That's why we even went as far back as to the school curriculums. We've introduced ICT in schools. We're actually auditing that ICT to make sure that it's relevant and it's what we need for the future that we are aspiring. This president is serious about making sure that we leave that legacy as PF, that we are the ones that migrated this country digitally, and we put in place policies, procedures, and the foundation for training the people to increase the uptake of the ICT and the use of the ICT. Just about 3 days ago, I was officiating at an investor's launch of Smart Plus. They are going to be assembling smart gadgets right here in Zambia in the MFES. You know, we are going to have smart gadgets being assembled here, being made here in Zambia, because as we train people, as we transition digitally, we need to make sure that there are gadgets available and they are affordable to all the people that needs to have access to those. To support these environments that I'm speaking to, you know, we need a policy framework. We need a government that thinks through what the best legislative environment, policy environment needs to look like to make sure that we incentivize the private sectors to come and play, as well as where the private sector can't play, the government will continue doing its part. In the railway transportation that I spoke about, we are thinking about creating an environment where we open up the rail infrastructure so that any other companies that has locomotives and wagons and want to transport can fly onto the railway. You know, that way Zambia Railways and Tazara can probably concentrate on being a logistics and freight company and leave the maintenance of the permanent ways to an institution and an authority that can handle that and invest in that. We're thinking that. We feel that is timely, that will be important to make sure that the Zambia Railways, the Tazaras, can focus on what they know best, which is, I mean, they're a freight and logistics company. You know, their need should be how to best serve the customers in the freight and logistics and shipping, not turning knobs and laying sand on the tracks. So we want to separate that. And once we do that, then we can open up the tracks. We have many tracks in the country. If we open up, anyone who has the capacity to buy locomotive and wagons and want to transport copper from the copper belt to somewhere, you'll be able to do that. You should be able to do that. The company will be able to do that. We're doing that in terms of looking at the legislative and the environment that we need to create for the private sector to participate. On the ICT side, recently I took a memo to Cabinet for a new licensing framework, which actually is giving rise to many more players in this space, even maybe a fourth or a fifth mobile operator onto the scene, so that we can create some type of competition. That competition means more investment is going to come into the space, jobs will be created, quality of service will improve, and the cost of service will also go down. That was approved, and we're just finishing the work to make sure that we can sign the statutory instrument that supports what was approved by Cabinet. And very soon, what will happen is, with the new licensing frameworks, the new licensing will be given under what is called the converged licensing regime, which was approved. It means if you take a license, it will give you option to provide many services, unlike what we have today. Today, MTN has a voice license. That's all they can do is voice. They can't do anything else. Under converged licensing framework, we're going to have many services that can be offered under one license. You can offer voice, you can offer data, you can offer all these things, voice over IP and many other things. What that will do is, if I'm MTN and have a license that I've paid for, that gives me permission to offer 4 services. Why should I offer 1? You know, I'm disadvantaging myself. So I'll be forced now to invest. If I've invested in voice infrastructure, I'll be forced now to invest in the other 3 infrastructures so I can fully utilize the license that I have. Because that license gives me the ability to do those things. That's where the investment I'm speaking about is coming from. So you're going to see a proliferation of the investment, and that investment means jobs, means our networks are going to be expanded, upgraded, improved upon, jobs will be created, and the quality of service will improve. All these things are speaking into what I started with, that we want Zambia to be the regional hub for transport and communications. We want the efficient manner, that transportation that we're going to set up to have. We want the communication side to be as efficient as well, and also as affordable as it can be. I forgot to mention something when I was speaking about the aviation investment, which is the national airline. So I'm trying to preempt all the questions that you're going to ask me when I finish my talk. So that I finish my opening remarks and there'll be no questions. We can all go home and rest. See, as we invest, I think we're investing over almost $2 billion in the aviation space. You know, new airport terminals, new provincial airports, and airstrips being upgraded, and all these other things. I think what we've seen as a PF government is that as we talk diversification of the economy, which is on the top of our agenda as PF, you know, many previous governments spoke about diversifying the economy, and we all know that it's a mixed results in terms of what we've achieved. Have we diversified enough? You know, and we are saying under our government we're going to achieve even where the previous governments failed to achieve in terms of diversifying the economy. We've been a mono economy, mostly mining based, and we're not abandoning mining. You know, there's a lot of FDIs going into the mining sector. If you go to the Solwezi area, northwestern province areas, a new new core belt province. We'll continue with that. But we're speaking about diversifying into agriculture and agricultural value chain. We're speaking about going into tourism and opening many tourism corridors. We're speaking about industrialization. Many of these things we're speaking about need, again, the 4 modes of transportation being available, accessible, and affordable. Communications being efficient and available and everywhere. So this whole story is coming together, if you can see it. You know, it's all connecting together, and there's a thought process behind all this. There are actually people in this government that are sitting behind and making sense of all this and connecting all the dots, you know, so that we can have the development and the agenda that we want as this PF government. The national airline factors into this greatly, because if we're going to open up tourism corridors, like the Cassava Bay that we're speaking about, you know, away from just the one corridor that we've opened up, which is the Livingstone and Victoria Falls. We want to go north. There are many waterfalls in the north. Some of the white sandy beaches, probably the only white sandy beaches available on the African continent, and the Samfya area. You know, we want to open up those corridors. But to open up those corridors, we need to make some deliberate steps to attract people to come and see these things. So we need the infrastructure, we need the bed spaces, we need this, we need all those things. Part of that is the mode of transportation. People cannot come from Beijing and have to go through 6 stops before they get to the tourist destination. They are tired, and they don't want to do that. It's too cumbersome, it's complicated, it's tiring, it's costly. So re-establishing the national airline, which will play a catalytic role to the industrialization, to the diversification of the economy, to boosting the tourism, is key and important for this government. We have, as a ministry, We've done a lot of work around this, and we've packaged it. It's at a cabinet level, and we're going to present to cabinet and make a case for re-establishment of Zambia Airways, so that as we speak to industrialization, diversification of the economy, boosting agriculture and agricultural value chain, this airline will play the catalytic role it needs to play. Because there are certain things that you may farm, such as flowers. They need to get to a market in Paris in 8 hours or 10 hours. If you don't have your own airline, you're going to struggle. You can't rely on somebody else to do that for you. If you want to grow your tourism numbers from 1 million a year that we have now to 5 to 10 million, and we've targeted this through our missions, where we're having tourism desks to market Zambia and market it aggressively. You're not going to market it well when to come to Zambia you have to go through 4 or 5 destinations, and it takes you 40 hours when it can take you 8 hours. The national airline factors into that very well. And we're going to make a case to cabinet that they approve this so that we can start and reestablish the national airline to speak into the many things that we want to do as a government. I think I've touched on many things, and you give a politician a space to speak, you regret, because we politicians are paid to speak. So I can go on and on and on and on and on. Lunch can be brought here and I'll still be talking. So maybe if you allow me, I can stop here and take questions. I know there'll be questions on the SIs for RATSA. I haven't touched on that deliberately. Maybe questions on the Serenje, Petauke, Chipata, Mchinji Rail, the $2.3 billion project we're about to start. There may be other questions, but maybe I can stop there so that we encourage dialogue and discussion.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for that candid presentation. Right now, we'll just get a commentary from the media director before I open the interactive session.
Well, maybe just in brief, Honorable Minister, thank you so much for that input. We know very well that the Ministry of Transport and Communication basically anchors what a patriotic front desires to do in terms of transforming this country. It's not business as usual, as clearly the Minister has demonstrated. And if Zambia is going to be that regional hub, if Zambia is going to reposition from what we're told that we're a landlocked country to become the land-linked country, if Zambia is going to make use of the 227 million population in the SADC region, it's going to take this ministry to lay this kind of platform, because everything that we're going to do, whether it be agriculture, it's going to depend on the infrastructure that the ministry is going to put in place: water, transport, rail, aviation, telecoms. Whether someone is a farmer, you've got cattle and you head an opposition party, for you to move your cattle to the marketplace, you need infrastructure. So in terms of what this government is doing, Honorable Minister, that's highly commendable, and thank you so much. And whatever is happening, this is what the PF manifesto is all about. Others will attack us, on rhetoric, but what they don't give you are alternatives. We have a solid manifesto. What the minister is explaining is informed by the Patriotic Manifesto 2016 to 2021.
Thank you so much, Director. At this point, we'll invite questions. We're beginning with 3 questions. Do we have questions? Take a question from there, gentleman there, from the gentleman here, and the gentleman there. And as you ask your questions, could you kindly introduce yourselves and the media institution from where you come from? Beginning with the gentleman there.
Good morning, Minister. My name is Roger. 2 questions. My first one, I wanted to find out how you're dealing with abuse of social media in institutions maybe like Zikta, post-species, Malis, and all sorts of abuse of social media. My second question, I wanted to get an update on the current status of the machinery that was bought by RATSA to test vehicles from Germany. It very cost effective. We really want to know the latest on what has happened to that deal.
Okay, the next question from
Good morning, Honorable. My name is maybe Augustine Gatumbulu. I'm from Sun Radio. Thank you very much for the background that you have given me. At least have a clear picture of who you are in terms of where you're coming from and joining the politics. First of all, I have two questions. The first one is about how are you integrating into the Zambian politics? Because if I got it right from your background, you're more of a technocrat than a politician. But of course, understanding our environment and our Zambian politics. So how are you fitting in? The second question is, there are fears from people out there that with the increment of these tariffs, we might see also some sort of increment in terms of transport. As a ministry, how are you going to handle that? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Scholar Francis, with the Unit newspaper. Mine is on transport sector, Honorable Minister, and in particular the RATSA. I think in March you issued the SI number 79, which prohibited, which was going to prohibit the transportation of the panel funds and without safety facilities such as seat belts. But I'm aware that you temporarily suspended this SI, or probably to allow further consultations with stakeholders such as ZRA and others. Now, I just want to find out, because the debate is that you want to go with panel funds slowly phasing them out. There is ice passes due to the fact that they don't have seat belts, and probably I don't know if you want to replace them with the ROSA buses. And we have seen that personally I've observed that even on the same ROSA buses, people don't get to use the seat belts. So what is the way forward in this? How are you doing it come December next year, which I want to believe is a deadline? And secondly, I know Comrade Sander said it's not your show, but I want to find out what prompted you to start this interactive forum between the ruling and the media.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those very good, important questions. The abuse of social media is the first question, and regrettably, we're seeing a lot more of this actually. You know, with the benefits that social media brings, there's also these abuses that we are seeing. And I just want to let you know that as a government, we have jurisdictions that try to attempt to address this. My ministry under Transport and Communications, we are in charge of the technology in terms of communication. The content in the communication is under Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. But between us, we have some type of understanding so that we can curb these abuses that are springing up. And one such tool that we have is the RATSA, is ZICTA. ZICTA licenses the players and the technology in the space. And because of that, there are certain tools and gadgets at their disposal that they use. And even as recently as maybe 2-3 weeks ago, there were some inspections ZICTA was doing and raided some institutions where they confiscated some servers. I don't know if you followed that. I think that is one way that we're trying to monitor and see how we can make sure that these abuses are managed. You can't totally eliminate it and stop it. People are going to do what they want to do in the comfort of their homes. But as a government, we also want to make sure to protect other consumers from the abuses that are happening. So when you cross that line, we are making sure that we step in and try to address it within the tools that we have and the laws that we have. Further to this, there are actually 4 bills that I'm going to propose in Parliament when we sit next. There's a cyber security bill that we're working on. There's a cyber crime bill that we're working on. There's electronic commerce bill that we're working on, and also data protection bill we're working on. All these 4 bills are going to enhance the existing tools in terms of making sure that there is credibility and the protection that needs to be there in this space. Because as we do more digital migration and people start using these systems more, if I'm going to make a payment to RATSA for my renewal of a driver license, I need to make sure that my Visa credit card information, when I enter it on my smartphone, is protected. And if it's accessed by unscrupulous personnel, they can be arrested and they can be prosecuted, and there's a law that speaks to that. Many of these laws are there in other countries. If you go to developed countries, the UK, the USA, so people won't say we're trying to crack down on anyone, because we're just trying to align so that we can have the foundation and the groundwork for growth and what we need to see. And we are in a very good position as a third world country that we are, Zambia, because where we are and what we are trying to address are things that the developed countries maybe 50 years ago addressed. So we have actually examples on how to do some of these things, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but just put our thoughts to it and customize that solution for our environment. And that's what we're doing. So these 4 bills are going to totally speak into this environment, this internet environment, so that there is data protection, there's cyber security, there's a cyber crime bill that's going to met out the punishments for the abusers. And as you know, all these gadgets that are on the market have serial numbers. When you bring a gadget into the country, it's licensed. It's allowed to operate on this space using those serial numbers. So we can have the comfort that we can abuse people, insult people in the comfort of our own homes, but be mindful that if we were in a state where some of these things are not allowed, people would have knocked on your doors. There are countries that I've visited where you can't even make a WhatsApp call. It's blocked, it's restricted. You can't go to Facebook. It's stopped, it's restricted. So we have a lot of freedoms here in the country, and this PF government wants to be on record that these freedoms are not going to be tampered with. But we're also asking for responsible behavior as we enjoy these freedoms, and want to make sure that the fact that these freedoms have been given to us to enjoy, let's not abuse them. Because if you abuse them beyond what is palatable, you may find yourself on the other side of the law. And we're a country of laws. Rule of law is something that we're proud of. Our court systems and the processes that are existing there, we're proud of those. You're going to be put through that. And if I find one thing, the book will be thrown at you. So that's what I can say on the abuse of social media. On RATSA and roadworthiness machines that RATSA bought. Yes, I know that the push was to move away from the manual testing of the vehicles for roadworthiness to an automated way of testing these vehicles, for many reasons, obviously. If you do manual inspection, it means a person goes and inspects a vehicle. And we are not perfect, we are human beings. You have feelings. If I fought with my wife today and I'm in a bad mood, I may fail your vehicle just because I'm in a bad mood. We're human beings. If a girlfriend brings a vehicle for testing and I'm the one testing, I'm not going to fail my girlfriend. I will pass her. So some of those things are things that the weaknesses of a human being doing these tests, which are very critical because they speak to the road safety profile. If you miss it there, you're actually going to now transmit a problem onto the roads. And some of the accidents we've been seeing onto the roads actually speak to the roadworthiness of some of the vehicles that are on the roads. So we push the agency of government in charge of road safety to make sure that we invested in this, and the PF government invested in this, and we bought those equipment from Germany. When we bought them, they came with savings from Germany. So when we tried to use them in our environment without customization, they were not successful. This is a story that I think you might have heard. I think many vehicles that tried to go onto that machine, they failed because that customization for our environment had not taken place. So we suspended the use of those equipments until the customization happened, until the programs were redone to put in the parameters that the Bureau of Standards and RATSA and everyone had that speak to our environment. That process ended last year. Late last year, I toured all these institutions to inspect these equipment. I was at Mimosa, we tested a few vehicles, and these pieces of equipment are ready, they've been customized, and they're working very well. And moving forward, since January this year, we are moving all roadworthiness tests to this vehicle, to these equipments, because they subject a vehicle to a battery of tests that an individual can't do. You know, the sleep, the brake, even the lights, you know, the indicators that you have, you know, the emissions, you know, and how your vehicle combusts that fuel. All those tests, a battery of tests, I think 17, maybe more, that the vehicle is subjected to when it's put on this machine for it to pass as roadworthy. And the equipment are working very well. They've been customized, and RATSA is using them. We have 4 of them, and they're not enough for the country. I've instructed RATSA to create budget in the budget lines to acquire more of these, to make sure that we roll them out countrywide, and the subjectivity that comes from individuals testing roadworthiness of vehicles stops, and we go fully automated to these machines. How am I fitting in the politics coming from a technical background? It's easy when you belong to the PF. Because the PF is a family of open-handed people, warm people that hold your hand and guide you through where you need to be guided. Yes, I came from a technical background, but I've been close to politics. As you know, politics interacts with people all the time. And because of that, I understood the basics and the fundamentals of what you need to do in this space. And where I didn't understand, like I said, I've been embraced by the seasoned politicians. They've taken me under their wings. They've guided me. They've coached me. They've counseled me. And I've been able to listen. So the transition has been very, very smooth. And again, credit goes to the PF as a party, the way it is, how tolerant it is, how tolerant it is to divergent views, how open it is to new people that want to come in and participate at any level within the party and within our politics. So the fitting to me has not been a problem, and it's been a smooth sailing, for lack of better words. The increase in electricity affecting transport costs. I think Honorable Mabumba spoke to this a lot and has done service to this discussion in terms of what this government is doing, in terms of aligning our cost reflectivity, in terms of electricity that we make. I think he's given very good examples in terms of even ourselves at very our own household levels. If you buy in Saraula and you sell in Saraula, you buy Saraula at 5 kwacha a bale, and you go and sell it at 3 kwacha a bale. I don't think you're going to be in business for a very long time, you know, because you need to make sure that you cover your costs, that you know, goes into putting the product you're putting onto the market. And ZESCO has not been doing that. We've been subsidizing, and the government pays a lot of money, to the tune of $500 million a year in subsidizing electricity. And I think if we want to grow this economy, we want to take the country where we need to take it, that is money that is probably well spent in expanding our infrastructures, building more hospitals, building more schools, getting more drugs for our hospitals, so that the country can move in the direction it needs to move, versus singularly putting it into one sector. So I think it's good intentions that the cost reflectivity of our electricity is being looked at, especially to make sure that at least the cost that we incur to make it is recovered. In terms of it transitioning and affecting transport costs, we don't see that at all. And in fact, even the cost of the increment in the general cost of living, we don't see that as well, because if you look at in absolute terms, the increase is actually not that much. We're moving from I think the 6 cents per kilowatt hour, to about the 8-9 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's in absolute terms, it's not a very big increase. And we feel that even the costs of commodities and other things will not reflect this alignment that this government is doing. And what the larger benefit to this actually, which the Honorable Minister has done justice to, is the fact that by us aligning the costs of electricity, we're actually going to open up this sector to more investment, because we suffered through failure to attract investors in the space, because the investor will not come in and invest $500 million, and it takes them 50 years to recover that money because our rates were so low. It was just not happening. And in my background, I worked for electricity companies. One of the companies I worked for, as I came back to Zambia, is a company called SN Power, which owns Lusemfo Hydro in Kabwe. And I was in charge of the expansion agenda. And I looked at expanding our footprint when I worked for them in Zambia. And when we did the numbers were not adding up. So it was easier to go to Malawi or to go to Uganda and invest there and not Zambia. And what that did was, we're not attracting the right investment, we're not creating the jobs we need to create, we're not building capacity, and many other ripple effects that came from that. So I think this is a good thing that the government is doing. And what this government is doing that I also want to emphasize is the tough decisions that they're making that are good for the country, that are good for the people. Because believe me, there's no free lunch anywhere in this world. The bill always gets due at some point. And if we keep lying to ourselves and want to keep ourselves eating free lunch and thinking the bill will not come due, I'm telling you, we're hurting this country. This government is making very tough decisions and laying the stone for the growth of this country for the next 20, 30, 50 years. And yes, we may get blowback for some of these tough decisions we're making, but I can guarantee you posterity will judge this PF government very, very good. Because 20 years, 25 years down the road, they'll look back and say, His Excellency Mr. Edgar Chagalungu superintended over the tough decisions and reforms that needed to be made to enjoy the Zambia we're enjoying today. On SI 79 and the seat belts, in fact, I didn't speak on the SIs. I think we broadly speak on the SIs that I've signed for road safety since I became Minister of Transport and Communication, and the ministers in charge of RATSA. I found a road safety profile that was worrying when I took office. About 10 people were dying on our roads per day. That's a profile. And many of these were very gruesome deaths, happening in the night, happening during the day. And we had certain information from the data gathering that we had done as an agency and as government. And we needed to make some decisions to start addressing these concerns. So 13 SIs were signed when I came in office in November last year. And the media picked up on, I think, just one, which was the restriction of night driving. And I'm indicting you, the media, for your selective memory in this, because there were 13 SIs that were signed. So please report on the other 12 as well, and the benefits that the other 12 are supposed to are trying to do. But of the 13, yes, there was the SI 76 of 2016, which restricted driving in the night for public service vehicles, because we looked at a picture that was very gruesome in terms of public service vehicle accidents in the night. 68% of the accidents were happening in the night from PSVs, and when they happened, they were very severe and almost always fatal. And as a government, we couldn't look away from that picture because we value the lives of our people over profits. So we had to have a stopgap measure to start addressing that. So we signed that. We signed many others. The one that you've spoken to, SI 79, which is a seatbelt laws. Again, if you look at many of the accidents we've had, you see people, when the accident happens, people die because of the impact and being tossed around and being thrown through windows, and then the vehicle rolls over them because there were no seat belts. We had to do something, so we signed that as well, which is now asking for all public service vehicles to have seat belts, and for people that are transporting their children to have car seats for their children. This thing of someone is driving and they have their son on the lap while they're driving, that is so dangerous. If you brake hard, that child is going to slam into the windscreen. You're going to kill your own child. So we're saying buy car seats, put them in the back, strap your child so that the child is safe. So there were 13 SIs, a GPS which tracks and monitors and speed limits public transportation. The fatigue management, SI 80 of 2016, which says when you've been driving for eight hours as a public service driver, you need to rest for an 8-hour period before you drive again. All these things are very good and well-intentioned statutory instruments that are speaking to us putting a stopgap measure as immediate-term measures while we look at medium and long-term solutions. Some of the long-term solutions I've spoken to this is maybe how we construct our roads. The 3 road agencies, NRFA, RD, and RATSA, sit on each other's boards. They compare notes on how we construct better roads, how we bank the roads, how we put signage on the roads, how we put markings on the roads. Many of those things are going to be addressed, but they are more long-term. For now, we needed to make sure that we legislate and put some restrictions and some laws against that. We've seen good compliance to these SIs, and the first quarter statistics that I looked at from Zambia Police recently, we've actually dropped the fatalities from an average of 10 per day to an average of 4 per day. That is still 4 too many, and we're going to continue to interrogate the best way to address these concerns. The question that you asked is correct, that the panel vans that we use as public transportation are actually not intended for public transportation where they come from. And because of our entrepreneurial spirit, we bring them here, we fabricate seats that don't meet any standards, and we put them on the road. I have a tendency to get on public transportation myself very frequently. And you should, when you sit on some of these seats, the height of these seats, your head is almost touching the roof of the panel van. And if you go to a pothole and it throws you up, you hit your head into the ceiling. It's not a way we want to transport our people with public transportation. So as PF government, we've stepped back to say, one, we always need to have seat belts, but these IS buses, these panel vans don't have provisions for these seat belts. So what that means is the entrepreneurs out there that want to enter this space need to start listening to what the government is thinking. And what the government is thinking is, for road safety, we need to start importing vehicles with standard safety features that are going to transport our people in dignity and with the respect they deserve as citizens. And we've extended this enforcement of this SI up to December 31st, 2018. A long time for the market to respond to the government thinking that we need to start bringing in a certain bus that's going to have all the features that we need, safety features that we need. And we are engaging, yes, Ministry of Finance and Zambia Revenue Authority to see how we can incentivize the market to buy the right type of bus, so that come January 2019, we're going to have a standard bus on our roads that is going to have all the safety provisions. We're going to have sensitized the people on the use and the need to use safety belts, and we can have a well-informed citizenry that is going to consume this product and consume it safely. I think those are the questions that were asked.
I'll invite the next three set of questions. There is the question that will be answered by Mr. Chanda at the end of the story, so that we can shed even more light. The next three set of questions from the journalists. I'll take one from the lady here, from the gentleman, and from the lady. You may begin.
MUSHIMBA from the Zambia Daily Mail. Honorable, you talked about resettling some people to pave way for the construction of an airport somewhere. So I wanted to find out the amount of money that government released and the number of people involved.
My name is Alfred. Actually, I just want to make a follow-up on the aspect of the 100% total medical coverage. Is there probably a deadline for what is the time frame highlighting when you mention on the 100%? Then the other aspect is on the aviation. I'm reliably informed of possible investors in the aviation sector on the Zambian space. I don't know if you could probably share some details of that, if that possible expenditure.
My name is Pamela Mneha from CDC TV. I stand to be corrected, Honorable. In your ministry, you have 4 modes of transport: aviation, railway, water, and roads. Then, since you became the minister, you signed several SIs on roads, and I've not seen. Maybe I need to get it from you today. SIs have never, rate from maybe aviation sector or the railway sector. I want to get an update from you. And then, regards the commuter train services, we have that in Lusaka. I think the train has been operational since 2013 and of course Microsata Railway. Do you have any plans to extend this to other provinces like maybe Copper Belt or Western Province?
Thank you. The resettlement plan for Ndola International Airport. The details on the resettlement plan. We have a total of 496 families that are on the land that we need to construct the airport on. And we've identified as government new piece of land where they're going to be moved to. So they'll give up the land that they have there and they'll be taken to another piece of land of equal size. And further, the government has released 1 million kwacha towards this resettlement plan, because as you move from where you've been to a new area, you essentially are being given the same amount of land that you used to have, but if you did some developments on that land, you're going to lose that. So this is now the 1 million kwacha that the government has released to make sure that you're compensated based on the valuation report that were done for what you've done on your piece of land. And this process is actually ongoing right now. As I said, by end of this month, the people have been moved because the campsites have been developed. And June 20th, around June 20th, His Excellency is actually scheduled to be on the Copper Belt to commission the township roads that we're going to start doing on the Copper Belt. And when he does that, he's also going to commission this construction of this airport. The 100% network coverage I spoke about in terms of timeline, I alluded to the timelines. I said the phase 2 that we're doing, that's going to increase the network coverage in the country to up to 92%, is a 3 to 4 year project. We're just finishing the signing of that. The pre-shipments have started. We're going to start that project very, very soon here. It will last 3 to 4 years. At the end of that, ZICTA, who's going to use the Universal Access Funds, will have raised enough money through that Universal Access Funds to now do the last mile, the last 8%. And we feel that it will take ZICTA about 3 years to finish. So if you're looking for a timeline from now to that time, it's about 7 years, maybe even less, because some of the things could be paralleled. As we are doing this phase 2, ZICTA may start maybe in year 2 or year 3 to also start their works. So maybe within 5 to 7 years, we can have the 100% network coverage that we aspire for at Zambia. And again, this is something that as PF government we are very, very proud of, that will be that government that will have delivered network for phone and internet to 100% of the country for the first time in the history of the country. And that is something that we need to be very proud of as PF and as your working government. Investors in the aviation space, yes. Again, I want to speak to something that attracts investors in a space, such as our space, Zambia. Investors have money to put somewhere, and they want to put that money where the environment is predictable, the environment has good laws, the environment has good political leadership, very sound economic policies, so that their investment is secured. They can bring money in, they can make money, and they can take money if they want to take it out. There has to be that environment. And this PF government has done a tremendous job making that environment possible. If you look at the foreign direct investment that has been coming into this country, it keeps increasing year on, because we're speaking to an environment that is enabling, an environment that is liberalized, an environment that is democratic, an environment that respects rule of law. That is what investors want. A predictable environment and a predictable government that is going to support them as they invest. Because of this, we're seeing a lot of investment. I'm being invited to many launches of this or that by investors coming into this space. It's a testament to the environment that we have, to the government that we have, and we should all be proud as Zambians that we have that environment that has been made possible. The market that we have here also is something that we speak to a lot as we transition Zambia into a regional hub for transport, communication, and many other things. We're not only speaking about Zambia and the 15 to 17 million people that are here in Zambia. We're speaking about the SADC region with 277 million people. If you put in Commerce and the Great Lakes region, we're speaking about 600 million plus people. It's a very big market. If you look at the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world, about 5 of them are right here in this space. So it's a very good market that is worth looking at, and looking at very critically and seriously if you are a company looking to expand and go into other regions. And we're not left behind in terms of attracting this investment. Not too long ago, there was a cargo airline proprietor who came to my office with the Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba from South Africa. They want to set up a cargo airline here. And they'll move all cargo from north to here, south to here, west, east to here. Everything goes through here. And then can now be taken to the destinations. And there are many other investments that we are looking into or analyzing as a ministry, because the investors feel comfortable with the direction of the country and the policies and the policy environment that we've created as PF government. The SIs, I've spoken about SIs on road safety. You're wondering whether there are any other SIs that have been done in the other sectors. Indeed, outside the road, you go to aviation, you go to waterways, you go to railway. I mentioned one SI that we are discussing in the rail space, which is going to ask for a certain quota of cargo to be moved from the roads onto the rail for heavy goods and bulk goods, and this is going to have multiple benefits. It's going to get that heavy load off the roads, extend the life of the roads, free up the roads. We're going to revitalize the rail system, many other benefits, job creation, because if we move that cargo, the rails are going to employ more people. So there are many benefits with that SI that we're working on. But yes, there are many other SIs outside the road safety that we're looking at, including in the aviation space, a lot of what we call bilateral air service agreements that we've signed, with other countries, and fifth freedoms, many other agreements that we've done as a ministry. Because again, we're seeing a lot of interest in Zambia by the world, and this interest is sitting here as the minister in charge of this ministry. I receive on average maybe 5-6 people per week wanting to invest in this space that my ministry is mandated to oversee. And the only thing that we do as government is to do the due diligence on them to make sure that they're credible, they have the finances and everything else. But that interest is there, and it's speaking to the environment that I spoke to, the predictability of our space, and the trajectory of the economy, and all those things that have given confidence to the people with money wanting to come and invest. The commuter train, the microchauffeur train, used to be an express train that was started in 2012, 2013 years. And we moved it from being an express train. It started stopping in many other stops. And the intention was to expand it to other regions, yes. Except that we found some challenges in making it sustainable. It's been able to bring in about 700,000 kwacha per year in revenue since we started it. But the cost of running it is slightly higher than that. So we can't expand it until we can understand and make sure that the maths make sense, that it's profitable, it's sustainable on its own, before we can look at other routes for it. But the plans and intentions are there indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Are there any other questions? There are no other questions. We will now allow the media director to speak about the interactive forum.
Yes, thank you so much, moderator. The interactive forum is the official forum for the party. As you know, there's no government without the party. There's no president at State House without the party. And it was very important that the party creates a platform on which our leaders will communicate through you, the media, to the people, and constantly so. Mindful that we have an obligation as a party to tell the story, keep the citizenry informed, but also to respond to a couple of distortions in the public space. We are mindful that we coexist as a country with prophets of doom in the political space. There are people who do not mind hurting Zambia's reputation both within and beyond our borders. It is a responsibility of the party in power to ensure that we keep the story as straight as it is. And again, through you, the media, who are the mirror of society, you engage, as you've done with Honorable MUSHIMBA, who is a cabinet minister, on behalf of the citizenry. You ask critical questions, burning questions, and answers are given. And these are answers that we believe and we hope that you relay back to the people without any distortions. Of course, we know that within the media fraternity, again, there are those of our colleagues who may wish to turn and twist and distort and dilute, and we understand it's part of the democracy that and the media freedom that we understand. We elected to to embrace as a country. But even when that is done, we know that there's a remnant of media institutions that are credible and would want to keep the flow of information as credible as it is, to ensure that our citizenry is, given the right kind of information. Let me also, I'll be failing to mention that, as you've seen, that Honorable Brian MUSHIMBA is a youthful minister. As a youthful minister, this is a party that believes in young people. I can qualify to say that this particular platform, the Interactive Forum, is organized by young people in the party. It's a platform organized by young people in the party. So when you see a successful forum as this one has been, it will be about projecting the party, but the engine, the drivers, etc., it's young people in the party who are doing this every Sunday. This should also go out to our fellow youths out there who may not be within the Patriotic Front, who don't belong to us. That the Patriotic Front is not just a party for some of us who are Caponians. We also have intellectuals like Honorable Brian MUSHIMBA. So we're a mix, we're a blend. And this is the spice that we give to, and young people especially in this country, without any shadow of doubt, can expect to find room within the Patriotic Front. To those that would want to be part of the winning team that organizes this forum, please feel free. I think that we are an open church, and have we reached saturation? So we're still evangelizing, and more people keep coming. We have a president who believes in young people. And tasking youths in the party to be organizing a platform as critical as this one is not a small thing. Tasking a youthful minister to handle such a critical and crucial ministry is not a small thing. I think that in answering the question, this platform is there for us the party, the government, to communicate to the people through the media who are credible mirrors of society. And we hope that from today, I think that what the minister has given out should run us through the whole week, unless we want to be economical with reporting.
Thank you so much, Director Sir, Mr. Sandy Chanda, for those remarks. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say, I'll give an opportunity to our guest, the minister, to give his closing remarks.
Thank you, organizer. I wanted to also thank you, the media and everyone that's here to listen to us speak about some of these things that are important to us as the citizenry. In my closing remarks, I just wanted to highlight a few areas that you didn't touch on as a media. I left them out in my opening remarks, hoping you asked me, but you didn't. So because you didn't, I'll speak about them. And this is the empowerment through some of these projects that we're doing as a government. If I go back to Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, where we're expanding the new terminal, how many jobs have been created there? How many of those jobs have gone to our local people? I wanted that conversation as well. And I'll end and I'll close by giving some statistics there. KKIA has about 1,000 employees working on that project. 80% of that is our local people. 80% of that is our local people. 20% is expatriates that have brought certain skills that we don't have. And what are we doing as government to make sure that those skills they are bringing that we don't have, we have? We actually have a policy and a program through my ministry where we've deliberately hired extra people through the Airport Corporation to attach them to these projects, to those key skills that we don't have, so we can start the skills transfer into our people. So as we do more of these infrastructure-related projects, we can now start increasing the 80% local participation to 90%, and at some point, we can do 100% of these projects ourselves. In terms of projected job creation, once the airport, again, going back to KKIA, when it finishes, we're projecting to have about 800 permanent jobs created once this airport is done. you know, because there are shops there, there are malls there, and the facility is just, you know, it's expensive to need that type of people to work there. And those are direct jobs. Indirect jobs to do with, you know, maybe luggage handling, security. We project about 3,000 jobs that are going to be created from that project. Now, this is just one project. I've given an example. You can then extrapolate, you know, in terms of these other projects of similar value and similar size, you know. So there's quite a hive of activities that is there. And when you hear us as government speak about job creation, these are the things, practical things that are there for anyone to see, that these jobs are being created. They are there. We may not create them fast enough, and we're asking for understanding as we roll these projects out, but we have a commitment to you, the people, to the mandate and the vote that you gave us, that we mean well and we're going to get us where we need to go. Lastly, many of these infrastructure projects that we're doing also, there's a 20% threshold that's allocated to local participation. You know, we didn't speak about the Serenge, Chipata, Petauke, Muchinji rail that we're about to start. $2.3 billion project. That's going to be the shortest route to sea from Zambia currently to the Nakala port. We're just about to start that project. It's going to have 8,000 direct employment for the next 4 years as we construct it. 20% of that is earmarked for our local contractors, our local companies, our local people. Again, the thinking is if we can earmark certain works for our local people, we start building capacity among our local people. When we build that capacity, we start increasing that 20% to higher numbers. And at some point, we don't even have to legislate this because we're going to have so much capacity internally that whenever we advertise for work, the local companies will be there with capacity, both resource-wise, financially, and otherwise, to take on these big projects. And we do them internally ourselves. The towers project I spoke about, also being done by Huawei. I was taken to task in Parliament when I made a ministerial statement on that, to say why are we going with Huawei versus a local company? And the answer is what I've been speaking to, that yes, we are a growing economy, we're growing our capacity, we're growing our skill set, but we're not there yet to take on some of these highly specialized and technical jobs. What we need is to make sure that as we give these jobs out, we have a deliberate policy to put our people underneath them, so our people can soak up that knowledge and expand and grow. And with this, I'll caution our local contractors that have a tendency to get this 20% work and they sell it. We are not doing ourselves any service as Zambians. If you take a contract, you get it through this program, and then you sell it. You get your commission, and you go on and do other things. No, no, no. The intention is for us to build capacity. We don't build capacity if you sell it. You get it from a Chinese contractor who has a main contract. You get your 20%, then you resell it to another Chinese contractor. We're not building capacity. In the end, 50 years down the road, we're still going to be relying on other people to develop our economy and our country. And there's no country in the world that truly has developed to the levels that we need to develop to if it relies on external expertise all the time. We have to build our internal capacities and sustain that internal capacity. I thought I would end with those few remarks. Thank you very much.
The media director has instructed that we end with the national anthem. So please, may we sing the second verse.